security investigation into whether Bolton disclosed classified information in his 2020 book that he was not supposed to. Joining me now is Democratic Congressman Jamie Raskin of Maryland, who is the top Democrat on the House Judiciary Committee. Thank you so much for being here. First, you are not only the ranking Democrat on Judiciary, John Bolton happens to live in your suburban D.C. in your Maryland district. What is your reaction to this search?
Well, and I, of course, support the constitutional rights of all of my constituents, Dana. And look, this episode is disturbing, and it seems to confirm Bolton's own prediction that if Donald Trump got back into office, his administration would be consumed with vengeance and retribution against his perceived political enemies. They stripped John Bolton of his security detail on the first day of the administration, I believe. They stripped him of his security clearance. He was listed on Kash Patel's so-called enemies list. And it seems as if perhaps the president was not pleased with what Bolton was saying during the course of the big summit with Vladimir Putin here in the United States in Alaska. And he was reminding everybody that Vladimir Putin had one goal, which was to capture Ukraine and reabsorb it into the newly reconstituted Russian Empire. So obviously that got on Donald Trump's nerves, and I think we can see the results of it here. At least, based on the information I've got, this looks like it's very much in line with the other acts of political retribution and vengeance exacted against Bolton.
I mean, that's a pretty big charge that you're not just dancing around, you're saying. You think this is political retribution?
Well, look, obviously we don't know the facts, so we want to find out what all the facts are. But if we want to talk about, taking government files unlawfully, Donald Trump should release Special Counsel Jack Smith's report on Donald Trump's taking of intelligence information and secured information and not returning it. And why have we not seen anything about that? Why have we not seen any investigation or any probe into Signalgate? The discussion of highly classified material over a Signal chat room. So, if there's any merit to it, nonetheless, it does seem like it is a very selectively deployed principle within the Trump administration.
You are a lawyer, you are a constitutional expert, you know far better than I that in order to conduct this search, which we should say is looking at live pictures, it's still going on in your district of John Bolton's house, also of his office, a judge, a magistrate, has to approve it. Does that make you feel better, for lack of a better way to say it, that this is being done in the proper way?
Yeah, it does make me feel better, assuming all of that is true. Of course, that was precisely the benefit of the doubt that Donald Trump and his supporters refused to concede when Mar-a-Lago was searched with a search warrant that had been authorized by a neutral magistrate. They didn't accept that. They claimed that somehow it was a completely political thing with far less justification for that claim. So please count me in the camp of the suspicious of what's going on right now. But this is why we all have to stand by the independence of the judiciary and make sure that people get their constitutional rights and that the independence of the courts is respected.
But last question, part of your job, a big part of your job is oversight of the federal law enforcement agencies and the Justice Department. Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, put on X or Twitter this morning as this was happening, America's safety isn't negotiable. Justice will be pursued always. The FBI director also said at 7 a.m., no one is above the law. FBI agents on mission. What do you think about that?
Well, justice will be served neutrally and universally. That would be a great principle if they adhered to it. Remember, the first thing that they did when they got in was they sacked dozens of federal prosecutors, experienced criminal prosecutors, simply because they had worked on the January 6th case. In other words, they were fired simply for having done their jobs. And there have been similar recriminations and vindictive actions taken towards people in the FBI. So they do clearly believe that Donald Trump is above the law. And anybody who participated in the investigation and the prosecution of January 6th violent insurrectionists and cop beaters and people who entered the Capitol illegally are suspect in the eyes of Pam Bondi and Kash Patel. They have exacted a campaign of retaliation against people who simply did their jobs by investigating and prosecuting that massive attack, which resulted in the injury and the wounding of more than 140 of our police officers. So they're still caught up in that campaign today. So that sounds like fine rhetoric, but they betrayed it immediately when they got into office.
Congressman Jamie Raskin, the congressman who represents John Bolton, your constituent in Bethesda, Maryland, and also the top Democrat on the Judiciary Committee. Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate it.
You bet.